Well, thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you, Principal Saunders, for really anticipating exactly the theme that I'd love to expand upon today. And thank you, Vice Principal Baker, for welcoming me to the podium today. First, I should say with all humility that it's a real honor to be a part of this very special day for Columbia International College, its students, its graduates, its proud families, its dedicated faculty and staff at Canada's largest and arguably most diverse boarding high school. Graduates, let me begin by congratulating you on your academic achievements. Together, you've been admitted to a wide range of excellent universities around the world, and you've secured more than $4.6 million in entrance awards. Really, really well done. As you prepare for the next phase of your education journey, and this is where I'm going to connect with Principal Saunders' remarks, let me encourage you to think about taking some risks. I urge you to remember that learning is itself inherently risky, and that's actually why it's the most rewarding thing to do. As a university student, you'll have a privileged opportunity to take courses that are outside of your comfort zone. You'll get to sign up for clubs you haven't even heard of. You'll get to hang out with people who have views that differ from your views. You will be risking the safety of comfort, but what you will gain will propel you forward, and this is the way to excel. I speak from a bit of experience. All of my own achievements, personal, academic, professional, they've all come from risk-taking, and I'm going to tell you a few of those stories. So when I was a 25-year-old shiny new assistant professor, I actually benefited from the risk-taking of other people when I managed to attract amazing young graduate students to work with me. Now, they could have chosen a safer bet. They could have worked with an established full professor. But I quickly learned that I was smart if I surrounded myself with these kinds of gutsy students. They were fellow risk takers. They were people for whom the only option was to take risks, and the only option was to excel. Sure enough, these talented students got my lab up and running. Together we wrote papers, we got funding, a virtuous cycle started to take hold. Let me fast forward about 6 years to 2004. I was on sabbatical in Boston. I was at MIT. And I went to a nanotechnology conference. And the woman who was chairing my session was incredibly beautiful. And boy, did she ever know how to chair a scientific meeting. And then I checked out her publications. Her citations by other researchers in the field around the world, they were through the roof. She was an academic superwoman. She had had a huge impact on her field of DNA chemistry. She was a suitable girl, and I was a suitably intimidated boy. And I asked her out, even though I was intimidated. Now, of course, I had to have a pretext. I thought it was urgently important that we talk about the binding affinities between DNA and semiconductors. Over dinner at a fabulous new tapas place. We dated, we fell in love, we got married, we have a labradoodle, we have 2 kids, and it was a great decision. And it was one that involved I think the applause is for the labradoodle, and I will pass that along. It was a great decision. It was one that involved taking risks, overcoming and working through my fears, my uncertainties, my own self-doubt. This is my chance to introduce an idea that I'll come back to again a little bit later. I'm going to borrow some words from Edith Eger's book. The book's called The Choice, Embrace the Possible. Dr. Eger writes that how each of us is in some way mentally imprisoned. It's her mission to help us realize that when we do that, when we're mentally imprisoned, we're acting as our own jailers, and that therefore we have the power, in fact only we have the power, to be our own liberators. So after meeting my future wife, But before acquiring the Labradoodle, one of my research projects went really well. And my students and I thought, maybe we could build a company, create a technology. And then a friend asked me, just as we were starting up the company, you've got a great job at one of the world's great universities. You have stability and certainty, and you have prestige. Why put that on the line? Why imperil your record of success? Why risk failure? And I didn't know the answer to that. I just knew I wanted to do it. So we created a company. It was called Envisage, and it turned out to be a success. We made cameras that can see in the dark. About 100 people started or advanced their careers at Envisage, and our camera is now on track to make it to the marketplace. And in building the company, I learned from my colleagues, from my investors, and from doing how to get a company funded, go make the wrong product, use the wrong product to get in the door and to talk to customers, and then have the customers tell us what the right product is, and then go build it. So the way you learn new skills is by doing things you've never done before. You fail. After all, you've never done it before. Learning's risky, and that is why it's the most rewarding thing. About 3 years ago, I decided to start a new research project at the university. I wanted to turn carbon dioxide, the greenhouse gas, from a liability into an asset. We'd power the system with renewable energy, like solar energy or wind energy. That's gotten cheaper and cheaper over time. But then we'd store that energy, and we'd use it to upgrade the carbon dioxide into a useful chemical feedstock for the plastics industry. Now, this seemed like a good idea. There was only one problem. I knew very little about the underlying science of doing this. This was a chemistry problem, and in chemistry, I was an amateur. And yet, I decided I was only going to work on problems I cared passionately about. So we just did it. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. The students published great papers in great journals. They took up great positions in Canadian industry and in industry abroad. Some are now professors. If I can quote Edith Eger again, taking risks doesn't mean throwing ourselves blindly into danger. It means embracing our fears so we aren't imprisoned by them. So here's my suggestion to you today. If you're presented with two doors, door A has a sign that says, this is probably going to work. I'm almost sure of it. I can predict it. I can model it. I can do the math. And door B has a sign that says, I simply do not know whether this is going to work. But if it did, it would be astonishing and it would be important. Well, if you're presented with those doors, I urge you to take door B. I'm going to finish on a last theme. And my last theme today is about gratitude. I've talked about what propels us forward, embracing our fears in a way that allows us to take risks, smartless, to learn, to advance, to grow. But how did we get to that point that we could do that? How did we get to the point that we now have the luxury of taking these risks? Why do we, of all people, have these opportunities that are worth seizing? Well, we're very fortunate to have teachers, family, friends, leaders who have cheered us onward and upward when we needed that kind of cheering. Some of these supporters are with you in this beautiful space today. Let's celebrate with them. Let's say thank you for and thank you to the people who compelled us and who powered us to excel. And as you move forward in your next big stage of life, I wish you every success. We need your talent, your commitment, your ingenuity. I'm excited to see some of you at the University of Toronto soon, and I'm excited to see every single one of you contributing to making the world a better place through the risks that you take. Thank you, congratulations again, and have a wonderful and richly deserved celebration.